What's up, YouTube? So, welcome back to another Talking Cards episode. I have an amazing guest. I have Alec with me, another content creator, USMNT Soccer Cards, an amazing channel if you guys are not aware. And Alec, it's a pleasure to have you with me. We did a podcast more or less, I would say, 1 year ago, one on one. So, really happy. I think we have a lot to talk about. But yeah, tell something to my viewers that may not know you, and of course, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you, Andre. Hope you're well. I also make soccer card content under the name USMNT Soccer Cards. Started off mostly US related, but over time, as I learned more and as the market matured, I've just had a lot more joy in doing other stuff. So typically more pops and prices focused and more sort of market analysis, but that's primarily what I do, and I think it's a good complement to the type of content you do as well. So I appreciate you having me and looking forward to talking.
No, for sure. I mean, I love a lot of series that you have in the channel. For example, the PWCC review. I actually tend to do the preview. You do the review.
I like it.
So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of my viewers are probably aware of your channel. They should check out if they are not aware. But it's an amazing channel, and I don't say it just because you are here with me. I really like your content. That said, actually, I forgot to ask one thing to the viewers. Don't forget to leave a like. I have to start asking a like on the Talking Cars podcast because I always forget and I notice a big difference. So, like, I have 5 questions for you. I think all of them are fun, a couple a bit more complex than others, but this should be a great talk. So, let's start with the number one. So, the number one goes this way. Your first video was 3 years ago, and a lot happening in our market since that. If you could go back in time, let's say you have, I believe is Mandalorian, right? The
Yeah,
the
yeah.
thing to go back in time. What advice would you give to yourself? And yeah, what advice would that be?
Okay. I mean, I think it's probably similar for a lot of people. Um, but the main thing I would say is just to have less noise in general in terms of I mean, obviously, the soccer related channels, I like them and whatnot, but I mean, there's so much content. I mean, that it gets a bit monotonous and you sort of get caught up in it all. Something that I guess I would compare it to is like all the card show videos that were coming out, 6 months, a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. I mean, those are practically gone. I mean, the big channels still do them, but like soccer card related and, most other creators don't do as much of it at the moment. And I think with that, over time, I've been able to sort of make my buying a bit more concise, and by keeping the amount of content I watch down a bit, I think that helps me a lot. And so really, I think, and it's not to say that I was going out and buying the craziest stuff and basketball base prism or something like that, but I think that with the amount of content that was out and with the buying patterns and selling patterns that people had, it was a lot. So I think if I had to give myself any advice, that would probably be it. Because typically, from what I've found in the hobby, if you have your own focus and your own sort of ideas of how things play out and you just go down that path, you're probably much better off than if you follow what all the content people are saying, generally speaking. Because I don't think that more noise is going to be helpful in that regard.
I could not agree more with that. I think a lot of times it's difficult to cancel the noise, and the cards are so speculative that if I make a video, if you make a video, let's say you make a video and I really like your perspective, you may change my view on certain cards, on certain set. And I'm not saying you do that even intentional,
No,
but
yeah.
sometimes is the best strategy, and I tend to agree with that, is you need to have your own beliefs, and look, there is no magic on this. And sometimes if you like a card, if you like a set, and if you really think one day more people will appreciate the way I appreciate it, there is a good chance that that will happen or not. But at least when you make a mistake yourself, that does not feel great, but feels much better than if you make a mistake following other person because you never understood the real reason behind. And so I thought you end up sharing some powerful words there, my friend. To be honest, because canceling the noise is easy, is very easy to say, but difficult to do. But you need to do it. So
No, yeah.
I would
I,
agree.
I still struggle with it to a good extent. I wouldn't say, I'm perfect in everything I do, but I've definitely gotten a lot better at it. And I want to do a video kind of on the topic, but I think the same thing sort of happened with soccer, right? In the sense that I think a lot of the mainstream people got outside of their, typical buying patterns. And so I'd love to go back and see like what the mainstream people were buying in terms of percentage of soccer, say a year or two ago, and then what they're buying now. Because I'd imagine, I mean, at least from what I've seen in some videos here and there, it seems to be a lot less. And I think that's what a lot of people do. When the market retraces and markets are down, you go back to what you feel comfortable with. But I think that that's probably what we've seen in soccer to a good extent. And I think long term, that's good to have a lot of Americans that don't really know about soccer probably out of the flipping space. But I think you can see it across the board, and especially with soccer.
No, I agree. And it's always that old conversation about value and price. If you really think about the
Mm-hmm.
value of most cards is still the same. If you really think about, I mean, if you end up believing in, I don't know, completely random example, Neymar rookie, the value right now is probably still the same. Even though Neymar maybe not even the best example, but let's say a Modric early card, the value is still the same. The price may end up changing, but some people connect value with price, and that's not exactly a great path to go because value is basically what you get, price is what you pay. And when you try, and it's very difficult to be honest, but when you try to master this idea, those concepts, I think you can start making much better decisions to be honest with you, because you understand, okay, my value is still the same, the price ends up changing, and of course that can put some stress on your decision, um, on your reason to hold the card, but you have to go back to fundamentals. You have to understand the value is still there, and if you believe in the value long run, and that's the idea of value investing, probably other people will also see it. Probably the market will correct itself in a way that helps you. So very interesting topic, my friend, to start this conversation. Not gonna
I
lie.
would add, I think right now people are probably, when you talk about value and price like that, that's something I wouldn't have. I mean, I guess if there's another piece of advice I could give myself, it would be that overpaying is actually a good thing, in the sense that, I mean, obviously, don't go 50% over, double comps or whatever. But if you truly are willing to overspend on a card, that probably means that your logic and your feelings behind it are pretty sound. And this time in the market where everything's, well, not at this point, it seems a little more mellow, but when everything was dropping, and even where we are now, people don't really feel comfortable paying over comps. But I think that that's one of the, true collecting things that you can do, is be willing to say, I'll pay more than the last guy because I value the card enough. And, it's not intuitive, but I think it makes a lot of sense.
Hey guys, quick pause on this one. Hope you are enjoying the video, but I want to share two things with you. The first is my Patreon community. If you love this type of videos, you probably love my content on Patreon. I put a new Q&A every week there, and I also put extra audio that you can call a podcast on Saturday. If you join Patreon right now, you have hours and hours and hours of content. It's actually quite crazy. Link below the video if you want to join. In this case, link on the description. The second thing is my Discord server. Amazing place to interact with me, amazing place to interact with other collectors, to learn about the soccer card market. We are more than 900 members and we are growing super fast. Link also below the video, check both, and now let's continue with this one. Yeah, no, I agree that look, in soccer it's still a bit too early for me to have a strong stance in certain cards, but when I was collecting Magic, I remember overpaying for a lot of cards at the time. But actually, most of them ended up being quite happy with me overpaying. Because sometimes when you overpay, that's already a very good sign if you think about it. It's probably something that you believe so much that, okay, even if I have to pay 20% more, I don't care. I think the upside will be so huge that makes a lot of sense to overpay. So again, a very, very interesting topic, and probably a topic that more people should talk about, because even if we are in a very speculative market, a crazy market, there is no way around that. We still should strive to make sense of all of this. And I know it's difficult, but we have to do it. But Alec, moving to a question that is a bit more fun, I would say. And this one, I really, really want to know your perspective, since I consider you an expert on this. Buy one, sell one, hold one. And get ready, because this will be quite difficult. Pulisic, Balogun. Am I pronouncing this correct? Balogun.
Yeah, Balogun.
Okay. Because it almost seems Balogun. But let's start. Pulisic, Balogun, or Reina? Buy one, sell one, hold one. And
Yeah,
of
so
course,
this is
your reason behind it. But
yeah. So this is an interesting time. I guess I'll start off with something I've heard James say, and I believe wholeheartedly. Like, if you're not American or if you don't like these guys, probably stay away. I see a lot of European people that a year or two ago maybe had a Pulisic and probably aren't happy about it. So just saying, I don't really think, I think that they're some of the most expensive players in terms to their actual ability. And so if you don't actually like them, please don't spend on them. But in terms of where I would put them, I think Balogun, at least right now, is a sell, just because of, he just joined the USMNT, and there's sort of been lingering rumors that he might for almost like 6 months. So I think it was a sort of boiling that was going on, and then eventually he joins the team. And you could argue maybe here in a few weeks, once he starts playing games for us and maybe goes out there and gets a goal, that could be a better time. I typically wouldn't try to time the peak on something like that. You'd probably just take a profit if you can. But just looking at it, I guess if we're looking at it in a long-term point of view, not like 6 months, a year, whatever, I think he's at a relative high, so I think you could buy in later. So I would say sell Balogun. The Pulisic Reina one's interesting because they're both sort of at weird points in, I guess, both of their careers. Gio didn't play that much this year, but also was able to stay healthy, which is kind of a win. And then Pulisic didn't play at all, outside of a few cup games here and there. So I think that I'd probably buy Gio because I feel more confident about what he can do next year. I know he'll be on Dortmund, or more than likely will be on Dortmund. Jude to be gone. There might be some injuries. He was a little unlucky this year because Royce and Brandt were healthy the whole year, and typically that's not the case. So I think there's a lot more of a clear path for him. The team has investment in him. They want to get more money for him. So I think that he has the most upside soon. Pulisic, I would say hold, but I could even see buying him. I could even see selling him. So really, I think it makes sense to hold. But he's at this weird point where, didn't have a great season with Chelsea, and you really don't know where he's going to go. It's hard to tell by like transfer rumors and stuff because he's American and he's sort of a big name and can get clicks. They link him to everywhere. So pretty typical in soccer. You really can't tell. And so there's some risk in not knowing where he goes. So I would say buy Reina, hold Pulisic, and sell Balogun, at least if you're viewing it in a few years timeline, maybe towards 2026. I think that's sort of where we stand at the moment. So
again, not that I have a great opinion on that. I trust your perspective much more than mine. But I think hearing your explanation makes a lot of sense. Balogun, from what I know, I see that at least I see a lot of people sharing his card, so I assume he's quite hot right now in the market. But still related with this, and I understand this is a very difficult question and we cannot predict this type of stuff. But do you think Pulisic will arrive in the World Cup 2026 as the biggest star, or do you think Rain or even Balogun may, or even another player, may take that status, out of him, if that makes sense?
I think if someone could, it would be Balogun. Probably more so just because he's a striker and he's scoring. So if that's the case,
good point.
Yeah, I also look at sort of their personalities, because I think in America and just with social media, personalities can really build who you are. And none of them really have that great personalities, I'll say. So I don't know how to view it in that regard. Like Pulisic, I would have thought this go around, Now, obviously, Reina didn't play, but in terms of market value and sort of how they're talked about in world soccer, Reina and Pulisic were relatively similar. But you didn't see almost any sort of Reina marketing. It was almost all Pulisic marketing. So even if there is another player that's maybe a bit better a year or two before, I don't think that all the marketing is going to shift towards that player. So I think it's still going to be Pulisic, because if he's playing the wing for us, he's sort of I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a big stretch, but just hear me out. Like a Kevin De Bruyne type player where he's sort of there for that generation. And since Pulisic was early, he's basically seen as the captain, the guy leading them through. Now, if he's knocked out of the starting lineup at some point, possibly. You also have the injury factor with him, so there are definitely some risk in terms of where he could go wrong. But I still think that he's the biggest name we have by a long shot. And if he at least stays at a decent level in Europe and continues to do, decent numbers, then I think he'll be the guy, just based off of more so a legacy point of view rather than what's happening at the time. And it's just hard. I mean, for really young guys to supplant him at this point, we don't have, as much as we like to say we have some depth, we don't have a lot of depth. So it would take something special or something horrific, I think, to knock him off. But
Okay.
definitely possible.
No, I mean, makes sense. I also asked that question because I know how important the USMT team is for the soccer card market in general. I mean, people may like it or not, but Pulisic is a huge deal in our market, and kind of makes sense if you really think about. I mean, if I was American, I would probably have a similar profile to yours. I would most likely collect the the players of this generation, because it seems like actually a really good generation comparing with others. The player I like the most, again, not that my perspective is comparable to yours, because you know much more than me, but the player I like the most is Reina. Every time I see him play, I think, yeah, this guy is really, really good. Can I be wrong on that? Can maybe he flops next year? Of course, but I actually it blew my mind that he ended up not playing on the last World Cup. I thought he was such obvious choice, but yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
I mean, that was more of an internal thing from, I don't know if you follow, do you know what happened in terms of
I
him and the
saw.
coach?
Yeah, I saw people on Discord talking about it. And actually, before we continue with this, you also have a Discord for people interested on uh,
Yeah.
USMT. So I will also leave that below the video if people want to check, because that probably is an amazing place to learn more. And I know there is a lot of people trying to learn more about the American market in specific for the national team. But yeah.
Mhm. No, yeah, I'm working on building it up. I need to make some more like US specific videos to try to, link it in there. I don't want to push it on people too much in the bigger videos, because I don't want, again, I don't want the Europeans coming in and, trying to collect US players if they don't actually want to, right? So, no, I agree. And obviously, I'm a big Reina guy, so I agree with your point. I mean, you saw whenever he came in this year for Dortmund, he had a ton of super sub goals, and I mean, just a really aggressive midfielder and someone that can keep the ball almost forever. I mean, really is never that threatened in possession. And as an American, I've never really seen stuff like that. We're basically built for, having big football, well, American football type athletes that can just run with you. But yeah, that's the first time I've ever felt like true moderately footballing genius from an American. I don't think I've ever seen it. So I feel good, but obviously it's still very young, still a lot to prove. So we'll
Alec,
see.
maybe I'm saying something stupid, to be honest, because I'm not sure about what I'm about to say. I'm not totally sure, but I have an idea that Reina's mother is actually Portuguese. I could be very wrong on this, but I think he has a connection with Portugal. So also because of that, maybe is not his mother, but I have almost 100% confident that he has Portuguese roots, if
Yeah,
that
he
makes
has he has
sense.
Argentinian links too. So he's like, he's got all the footballing nationalities behind him. But yeah.
Oh yeah. So moving on to the next question. And like I said, if people want to learn more about the USMT soccer card market, I think following you on Instagram, joining your Discord, following your channel, of course, could be an amazing, amazing place. The question number 3 is a fun one. Your top 3 dream cards in your want list. I did not specific if this would be the soccer cards, but let's try to keep it there. But if you want to talk about other cards, also feel free.
Okay, so I don't know. It's a bit difficult because I like making the dream list still attainable. I don't want to do anything crazy. So one that I'm missing, I've been working on a lot of the rookie runs, and I've finished most of the players. Maradona, I'm still missing a Pog, so I would really like a Pog. Ideally, I mean, it doesn't have to be unstuck, but I do want good focus on it or good resolution on the picture, which is typically very hard to find. So that would be one of the 3. I try to go for unstuck if possible because I feel like unstuck. And I don't know how you feel about this. I guess we can talk about it in a second, but we'll talk about unstuck here momentarily. The Palarex would be up there too. I don't have a Palarex, and so I'd really like that. And then to sort of round out, I guess, the GOAT top 3, I'm putting in, at least for now, the Pele Titulares, like the vertical headshot one. And I like that a lot. There's variations to it, so I could chase maybe a rare variation or try to get unstuck, but I mean, it's still really expensive. But again, real list. So those would be my 3.
Just one thing, you said Palirex is Cruyff because some people may not.
Oh,
know.
Okay.
You said just the Palirex.
Okay, yeah.
I know, but there is always people that have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So basically, 3 goats in vintage: Cruyff, Maradona, and Pele. And I think you end up having amazing choices. Probably the really all 3 are, I would say, fairly difficult, to be honest. But the one that is much more difficult is the Pele. But I agree, is one of the best Pele rookies. If I had to choose one Pele right now, and this is something I'm missing in my collection, I'm trying to find a nice rookie for Pele. Not trying to rush anything, but it's something that is on my mind. But I'm with you. Is one of my top choices for Pele would be that card. I will try to put it on the screen for people that may not be aware.
No, yeah. I mean, I think it's the most beautiful of all of his rookies. That's obviously up for debate, but I think it's amazing. I like it much more than the horizontal version. But I do think Pele, and to be honest, I don't own a singular Pele rookie at the moment. I don't know if you do, but Pele is very hard to nail down because if you look at all of his cards, I mean, he has a lot of options and they're pretty expensive. I mean, at least compared to, Messi, Cruyff, Maradona, Ronaldo, the whole lot there. So it's just, I've been very slow with it. It's very difficult for me to sort of hone in on, but I think that's the one I would want to go with. But again, at the same time, I think Pele, at least for the moment, I think now, I guess you could say Messi's at the same level because he has modern stuff that sells really well.
Yeah.
But in terms of like vintage stuff that sells decent, I mean, Pele's a whole different level than everyone else. So I'm a bit skeptical, but at the same time, I understand why. So
I think what I'm touching in the key point is that Pele is really expensive on the early stuff. Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi, even Cruyff, not that much. But Messi, and trying to compare with Pele, is really, really expensive on the modern stuff. If you want a really, really nice Prism 2014, you have to pay a lot. That's where I think is a bit more comparable with Pele. I think the strangeness for Messi comes a bit more on modern, even though I still think the rookie material is great. But for Pele, is more at the early... also rare stuff, to be honest, but rookies in general, even Aquarella is crazy expensive in my opinion, to be honest.
I mean, yeah, like you see an Aquarella and a Gazzetta go like every week in PWCC. Sometimes, maybe multiples if there's someone trying to sell a bunch, and it's just, and they still do great numbers. I don't know if you've seen in the vintage Discord, and usually it's not great to talk about this type of stuff, but since it's Pele and we're talking about how he might be a little overpriced, at least relatively, but of course it's Pele. There was a vintage post at one point where some guy had like 50 or 100 gazettas,
Oh
and he
my
like
god.
posted them all together. Yeah, it was absolutely insane to see that. And you've talked about it a long time, and I've heard other people sort of mention it, that Brazil, I mean, you look at populations of the countries, I mean, they're pretty high up there, especially relative to, European countries. And so you assume that there's a decent amount of population out there. But to be able to see someone with like 50 to 100 Pele rookies, now I know that's sort of the rookie people don't, I mean, we all sort of talk about it, how it's cut from an album, and, is that really a rookie? But yeah, I guess that's what definitely gives me pause a bit in terms of Pele, because I don't know if that's true for other things. I would imagine it's partially true, but yeah, that does scare me a bit. And I don't know. I guess that's where I'll end it for now. We can talk about something else here in a second.
No, but I agree with that. Look, the reason I never end up focusing on Pele is very simple. I always thought the value was not there. Okay, I have to explain this. When I say the value was not there, basically comparing with other players, I saw more opportunity on Cruyff, on Messi, on Cristiano Ronaldo. For example, I always thought, and let's forget Messi because people may think I have some bias for Messi, to be honest, at this point. But and I have, let's be real. But even for Cristiano Ronaldo, I understand it in terms of greatness. Maybe the market puts Pele ahead. But if you really look at the Cristiano Ronaldo market, I mean, two rookies, and Pele have so many. I mean, if you look at the number of cards graded early stuff for Pelé versus Cristiano Ronaldo, Pelé have more. And we know how sketchy the Brazilian stuff could be. That example I was not aware, the Gazeta. But I am, and I was in the past in a bunch of WhatsApp groups for Brazilian collectors that are trying to sell stuff. Some stuff a bit scammy, to be honest. But I remember seeing people with 5, 10 aquarellas, and this was not something that rare. So I remember when aquarella was still fairly low pop, and people can check those videos on my channel. I was saying, guys, you have to be careful with this because this card will increase in pop, and right now is one of the most graded cards in vintage. I'm not even sure if you combine the black version and the blue version. Let's be real, for the market is the same card. I'm not even sure if you just look at both variations as one card, if that is not higher pop than Maradona 79 Calciatore. I'm not sure, but it's probably close if it's not the case. And shocking news to everyone, more will come because I'm still on a couple of those Facebook groups, and I see more Aquarella than I see Gazeta. So it's kind of funny that the example was Gazeta, but I like the Aquarella. Even if the Aquarella was 10 times more common, I would prefer the Aquarella versus the Gazeta. But and this is me making an assumption, but you also can tell me if I'm correct. You probably end up focusing more on Cruyff, Maradona, etc., because you also saw more value comparing with the prices that are reflected on the Pelé market.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one example, you talked about Ronaldo and how he only has two. I mean, and of course it's not helped by the fake stickers, but if you look at the
Yeah,
stickers, like there was I don't know if you noticed, I think there was a BGS 7.5 that sold in like last week in PWCC. I'm pretty sure it was real,
was
which
real, yeah.
yeah, BGS grading a real sticker, that's pretty crazy. So but that went for like $1,000. And I mean, in terms of Ronaldo items, that's going to be an iconic Ronaldo. Like, I don't really know if you can debate that. With Pele rookies, you can debate which ones are going to be iconic because there's a lot of them. And so, and that, I mean, with like rarity and all that, you wouldn't even think the Aquarella would really have a chance at being like the go-to. But with how common it is, with how good it looks, I mean,
No,
very easily could be.
it's a
And
beautiful card for Pelé, to be honest. So we end up talking about the titulares vertical. I think that's beautiful. But I honestly think the Aquarella may be, in terms of just eye appealing, for me, the other card is much more special. But in terms of eye appealing, man, the Aquarella almost looks like a baseball card from the 50s.
No, yeah, I guess it probably is pretty close in terms of beauty. I guess I look past it a little bit because of how common it is, but maybe
Yeah.
that's just me being sort of a snob. But when you look at that Ronaldo, I mean, that's a 7.5 Ronaldo rookie sticker of, an iconic Ronaldo. And that's that went for like $1,000. And that's near the same price of almost any Pele rookie you can get. I mean,
Yeah,
if you want to get a Gazzetta Authentic, I think that went for 500. And that's like bottom barrel stuff. And 7.5 stickers, pretty good.
I agree. I mean, comparing that with even the Aquarellas PSA 1, PSA 2, oh man, I like that Ronaldo by. For me, honestly, is not even comparable. I think the person that got that Ronaldo probably will be quite happy. And you end up touching on all the flex situation. One thing that people have to have in consideration is actually there is a lot of real Ronaldo stickers on BGS labs. People in the past graded with them and nothing wrong. And that's actually a good example. I also have one that is real with BGS. So the thing with BGS is, honestly, this is not only with BGS. I know BGS is really, really bad. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, they're the worst.
But actually Benzema is a good example because Benzema have a lot of fake stickers with PSA in my perspective. So people have to be careful and take a look at the cards, ignore the brand, see if it's real, then assess the brand and see what's going on. I think is always the best approach because if you trust blind on SCC, and I love SCC, if you trust blind on PSA, or even if you trust blind for some reason that I would not understand on BGS, you will get really, really disappointed because all of them are a bit of a mess when it comes to this. I think PSA is a bit better than the others, not gonna lie, and I think they are trying to improve in a faster pace, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. That said, people, please be careful. It's much better to have a sticker that is low grade but is real, that have an amazing grade, and you end up finding that you have a fake one.
Well, so I guess this kind of goes back to like timing the market beats timing the market. Like that's something that I feel is almost invaluable in the sense that I've been here to basically see most versions of fakes that have come out. So I can look at them, basically identify them. If you're joining soccer now, I'm sure it would, you might not even know to start. You probably buy a fake one and then learn the hard way. And then after that, you have to go through the process of trying to figure out each one. And that does seem really difficult. I will say the one thing that worries me a bit, but also is just kind of extremely confusing is that PSA, you're aware, they haven't graded the Este sticker in like a year and a half. And so it baffles me that they are basically admitting that they can't grade it right now. I mean, because if they could, they would.
Yeah.
While at the same time, they're grading tons of pre-modern, like tons of, I'm not saying there's floods of fakes coming out, but I'm saying they're grading Zlatan still. They're grading Van Basten. I look in the pop charts that I do. They still go up, and these are still great stickers that and I think we've lost this a bit with the pandemic and everything, and with how crazy everything got. But the point of these companies, at least it should be mostly on authenticity and then grading, but people pay for grades
100%. Yeah, 100%. That's the main job, is authenticity. Is the grading is secondary. I agree 100% with that, and drives me crazy, to be honest with you. But no, go on. I'm sorry.
And I was just going to say, you can't get anyone to talk on it either. Like PSA, I guess PSA's done a decent job. They talked about like the Vinicius sticker back in the day and stuff like that. But it was weird because, at the time they talked about the Vinicius sticker. I think there was like a Rodrigo 2 or something like a few Brazilian stickers that they basically said, hey, we're done grading these. But when it comes to these stickers, they've never said anything. BGS has never said anything. I know everyone on, not everyone, but a lot of people on Instagram have, yelled at them. I went on Twitter for like a week or two straight and posted on everything they had, but and I know you've emailed, but you can't get anything. And it's pretty disappointing, I'll say, but I am happy that I've been here to be able to acknowledge them and actually almost authenticate them myself, which, if PSA is not going to help you, you gotta do the work yourself. And
exactly,
I'm glad that I'm able to, at least.
No, I agree. Look, I also think that, I made a video in the past. I know you also made a couple of videos. I try to share it every time I can on Instagram, on Discord. I also talk on Patreon from time to time. But at the end of the day, I'm a bit tired. This is not my job. This is not your job. I guess we can always try to inform, but at the end of the day, I mean, those companies they make millions. It's kind of like they really have to wake up for this type of stuff, and it's a bit frustrating because let's say you talk about the Ronaldo sticker on your YouTube channel. And then all of a sudden, Beckett contacts you and say, "Oh, you know what? Can you help us? Can you give us more information?" But they don't do that. They really don't care. It's very frustrating. I send emails to them. I'm probably blacklisted in all of those trading companies at this point, but I always try my best. I try to tag them. I try on Discord. Nothing works. So I mean, at one point we kind of have to move on and just spread the word for people that you care, but they are the ones doing the mistake. So
Yeah, that's what it is.
yeah, no, it is what it is, really. But moving on to something a bit more fun. The question number 4 is: what is the biggest potential catalyst you see in the market that you believe most people don't correctly evaluate? And we say one thing: I see on the back Messi confirmed GOAT. Can we connect this some way with Messi, for example, going to US? Do you think people are evaluating that correctly? Basically,
Yeah,
your
so
thoughts.
I guess we can start with that. I have a few others in mind, so we can come back to those. But yeah, I mean, with Messi, that honestly is one I wouldn't have written down. So the fact that it happened and sort of everything played out the way it is probably shows that, like, I mean, I guess up until a couple days ago, did you think he was going to Saudi?
Mm,
Was that the most likely?
I thought was Barcelona or Saudi. I never thought US. I mean, I knew there was rumors, but I
Yeah.
don't think so. Because I thought, okay, if he goes by passion, he goes for Barcelona. If he goes by money, he goes to Saudi. So I never probably, to be fair, not thinking about maybe the middle term is Miami, but
Yeah.
I did not believe it, to be honest.
So yeah, I think that's huge. I was going to actually tie it into the Pele conversation, but I guess we got back there, luckily enough. But I mean, with Pele, like we were talking about, you see that he dwarfs like everyone. I mean, even like third to fourth year stuff sells for like Maradona rookie prices,
Yeah.
close to if it's rare,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
part. But I mean, and I think that mostly just comes from Pele being in America. I mean, if you ask Americans to name soccer players, I think a good percent of them would get Pele. I don't think almost any of them would get Maradona. I really don't. Like, I knew of Maradona when I was still like a more casual footballing fan, but I didn't know like that he was that good, really. And I think that just comes down to sort of branding and how you're talked about. I know Maradona wasn't the huge, supporter of the U.S. and was like a Castro guy and all that. So like, that probably plays a role too. I'm guessing they don't want to pump him on media as much if that's how he views things. So to have Messi here is just huge because um, I know you watch the podcast, right? Or not but you know who they are, the Luca Tiger guys, but
Yeah,
more
yeah.
so Cage. So they have this basically, for those that don't know, it's a sports card podcast. They did everyday videos for a while, but now they're a bit more inconsistent, which is good. But the guy that hosts it, he hates soccer. Like, he's the guy that soccer people always rag on because he basically says no one should collect soccer. Soccer's, whatever. And he says that from sort of an older person perspective where they care about baseball and all that. But even his kid at this point now has like a Messi jersey and is talking about how he's going to Inter Miami. And, he's really starting to get into it. And you can almost tell he hates it, but at some point he's going to have to learn and get more involved. And I think that goes with a lot of Americans. Like, they don't necessarily hate soccer, but they're just sort of stuck in their ways. But if you give them someone like Messi, that at least they don't have to watch the MLS game, but they can view it on social media, see highlights, stuff like that, and actually relate to it. I think that's just absolutely huge. And I think that Messi did this also. I mean, he has sort of an ownership agreement within this. So he'll be like Beckham, where Beckham owns, Inter Miami and is sort of a focal point of that team. Having Messi over here doing the same thing is just absolutely insane. And so from that perspective, I think that this is the best possible thing that could have happened, really, because
I agree.
people, I mean, and I think you've said this too, but you want to see him go to Barca because that's like the soccer footballing,
As a
desire.
exactly, as a European, as a fan, that would be the best scenario. But for the card market, you are correct. Yeah, I think this is
But
the best option.
we saw what happened if you do that and it doesn't go well. Like say he goes back to Barca, maybe they lose the league or maybe even win it once, but don't win it all the time. And then Champions League, they get battered by Bayern again, 7-0. I mean, he could easily sort of end up in a Ronaldo like situation at Man U where when he went back, everyone was all excited, really just ready to go. And then by the end, you're like wanting him to leave. And so I think that that's the best possible option because really nothing he does in the MLS matters. I've seen some people in the Discord and just in general say like he has to come to the MLS and like do good. I don't really think it matters one bit because I mean, we've seen player performance doesn't matter the last couple of years. It's more so market conditions. I mean, Mbappe Euro, nothing really happened. Messi World Cup, there's a bit of a bump, but relative to what that did for his legacy, I don't think it's enough of a bump. So really, I mean, player performance doesn't matter too much. And I think it's more so market conditions and the legacy that you impact. And I think that this is as good as it gets in terms of building legacy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the thing with Barcelona, there is a old saying that goes this way: never go back to a place you end up being happy in the past. Something like that. I probably end up destroying the correct.
I don't even know, but I mean, generally speaking, your expectations are going to be higher than
exactly
when you get there, and so that's going to be difficult. For some other catalysts, one that I had was sort of. I mean, you play FIFA. Do you still play FIFA?
I try. I actually have the last FIFA on my computer, okay. But I don't play it that much anymore.
It's not so as much about FIFA because at this point FIFA is not as popular as it was. I mean, if you look at trends, that's pretty obvious, and especially like Ultimate Team stuff. But I think there's websites called like Footbin and these other websites where basically you can go in, you can find graphs, you can find all the cards of a player, you can get all this. Like if there was something like that for soccer, I think that would be huge because like right now. Sure, you have the PSA website and you can go in and do all, but it's so clunky and it's so difficult. Like you really have to love it to want to do it and to really get into the weeds. I mean, at some point in the future, I don't see how it can't happen, but I'd imagine there's some sort of website where you can go in, type in a player, find all of his cards. You can get, maybe little anecdotes on them that say like, hey, this Messi essay sticker was fake back then. Look for this or, whatever it is. And I think having ease of access to the information within soccer would be huge because there's presumably there's a lot of people that would like to know, but it's very, very difficult. I mean, soccer is probably the hardest collectible to understand. I mean, at least in terms of sports cards, right? I think that's I don't know how it can get any harder. So I think that would be a huge one. In addition to that, I think TCG crossover is massive. I mean, the potential for that, I don't think people ever really talk about it. It's sort of one of those things that we know exist, but TCG, like as you said, it's basically universal. I mean, everywhere in the world people like TCG, and I sort of hear it like the Soccer Cards United guys, they go to card shows in Europe and even they say like Pokemon sometimes takes over the room. Like and I wouldn't imagine that in Europe. I would have thought that they would have loved soccer or picked up on it relatively quickly. But maybe, they're just coming at it from a more organic point of view. And I think that eventually, they start to figure out soccer. But it's a long road. So I think that TCG is very much sort of the branch that, brings the two together.
Yeah, I mean, a lot to unpack there. So the thing about the website, I'm not sure if you are aware, PokemonPrices.com. I think that's a good example of website that would be amazing if we had that for Pokemon. Basically, it's a way to look at cards, look at prices, see actually the growth in pop. It's a very powerful tool if you are a Pokemon collector, and we don't have a lot of that. The thing about TCGs. I agree. I mean, I also, that's basically my background, and I also believe the potential for a huge crossover is insane, honestly. especially for the international market, not so much for the American market, being honest, but for the international market is huge. I mean, because outside of America, soccer tends to be not in all countries, but in most countries tends to be the number one or number two sport. So the thing about Pokemon, and I did not saw the podcast you're talking about, but does not surprises me. I mean, people think that most people in Europe collect soccer. No, that's not true. Most people in Europe collect Pokemon, Magic. If you put players, the number gets even crazier. I mean, I know the market is a bit different, but when I was playing, going to Grand Prix, etc., for Magic the Gathering, man, the amount of people playing Magic the Gathering in Europe is insanity. Some of the best players in the world are from Europe. We also had a bunch of Yu-Gi-Oh players. Pokemon, in terms of player base, always have been the lowest, but is more a collectible at this point than actually a game. And I think even the people in the market tend to agree with that. Probably right now with the crazy boom, I'm speaking some BS. Maybe even the player scene end up growing a lot in Europe, in America. But yeah, the potentially crossover is huge because I came from that. It's not like I'm an example exactly of what you are talking about. I'm an example. I was looking for Magic the Gathering cards. I found some sports cards, and all of a sudden you are in a crazy hole that you think, okay, what about Cristiano Ronaldo? What about Messi? Are soccer cards something that Americans care? And all of a sudden you end up finding almost a different world. And 100% there is people coming to our market that they come from Europe and they come specific from Pokemon, less from Magic. Magic is more about players than collectors, even though there is a lot of collectors. But in Europe, at least the player base is the strongest force. But you are spot on there. And this is where I think fanatics should try to... they have a difficult job, if you really think about, because international demand, international potential. But what this really means, I mean, how can you actually get those guys? Is not that easy, because people say, oh, you go to a stadium, you get the cards when you buy a ticket. Yeah, maybe, but I'm not sure. I think the best people to target in the market are people that already care about collectibles. Because you also collected Pokemon, right? So it's quite easy to make the transition, right? You already understand cards, you already understand rarity. If you have no idea about cards, the transition, I don't think, is not impossible, of course, but I don't think is that easy. Would you agree?
No, I think it's very true. I think because if someone doesn't collect already, you're almost trying to convince them why they should, and it's a very hard thing to do, to convince someone why they should pay money to get these cards of things that they don't care about. If they're not collecting it, they don't care. So it's a very hard sort of mental leap to take. When I was a kid, I wasn't huge on collecting Pokemon, but I had a big old box where they all sort of went around, and I had them, and that's at least what got me into this. Because if it wasn't for that, I don't think I would have had as much desire to get into cards in general. Because while I did sort of get in and buy some sports cards, realistically, I started targeting Pokemon and sort of some fun collection stuff, and that's what really builds it. And like you said, I think that there's so many Pokemon collectors, and you're going to have a much easier time. I don't think it's as simple as just giving someone a card at a game and then they're going to be like, well, now I got to go find all the cards. Like, I don't really think it works. You get a ticket at every game you go to. People aren't out there buying tickets to collect. That only recently sort of popped off. And so I don't think that it's that easy, but I do think that there's a ton of potential for it. And I didn't even know about the Pokemon website that you were talking about. I know that there's like at least 3 or 4 different ones. Like, there's a lot of them.
Yeah. Pokemon, Alec, I think people have... I really believe this. People in our market, and I think we have a bit of an older audience, I think it's fair to say this, but I really think people in our market that did not grow up with Pokemon, or for some reason never collected, even if they are from that time, they don't understand how big Pokemon is. I think some people really have no idea. I said this actually in my last podcast. PokeRev have 10 million subscribers or something like that. Do people have? Can you imagine if a soccer content creator had 10 million subscribers? If you make a video about one card, that card spikes to the moon.
Oh, yeah.
In Pokemon, even though they have a huge influence, but the mass production is also so high that things are a bit more under control, even though they are tricky, at least short term, mid term. But man, Pokemon will crush all the other markets. It's something that I'm starting to believe in more and more and more every day. Even if you look at gem rate, the numbers that PSA put, oh man, Pokemon is in a different level at this point. I mean, it is what it is.
No, yeah, I don't think enough people recognize like how many numbers PSA does with Pokemon. Like I think it's comparable to baseball, if not more or less. I mean, it's somewhere in that range.
I think he's
And that,
I think he's higher actually.
yeah. Well, actually, okay, so it might be as much as the entire sports card segment. I think that they did like one half and one half, and they're about the same. And I don't
Exactly.
think anyone well, most people in sports probably wouldn't think that. And
Yeah.
that shows you how big it is. And a lot of that's modern too. Like, not all of it. Obviously, there's base set and there's a lot of vintage sets that people care about and expensive cards and stuff. But a lot of that's modern. I mean, a lot of the modern gradings probably fleshed out of most sports card segments. I don't think people are doing that as much. Of course, there's some, but and that I don't know. That's why I get really upset when people talk about Lorcana and the way that they sort of talk about that, because it's not even comparable at all. Like Pokemon is on such a different level that sure, Lorcana can be fun. Maybe the cards be worth something one day, but when there's this much hype at the beginning of something, I don't buy it. I mean, the MetaZoo thing, I think they still make cards, but I haven't heard anyone talk about it, post about it, show the new hit, and I think the same thing could happen with Lorcana.
Alec, one question. You may already answer this question in the past, but how old are you?
26.
So okay, I'm a bit older than you. I'm 33. And I'm actually from the perfect generation to remember all of this stuff, because I remember being on school when Pokemon in 99 in Portugal was more on early 2000 and up appearing. The school was just... It's difficult to explain, to be honest, because you almost had to live at that time. And it's something organic, it's not forced. I mean, if people comparing Lorcana, this is just so insane. And I know, let's be real, Jeff Wilson ended up doing that comparison. Probably is just a lack of knowledge, to be honest, because Disney is bigger than Pokemon. Even that is debatable, by the way. But even if that's the case, and so what? Soccer is bigger than baseball, and baseball is much... Because there is a collector base, there is lore, there is history in that sport in terms of collecting cards, even probably collecting other type of memorabilia that there isn't in soccer, and that's the most important thing. But yeah, I mean the Lorcana stuff, the MetaZoo, this is normal, because even in the 90s, I remember a lot of early 2000, a lot of other TCGs appearing and dying. You have the Dragon Ball Score, and Dragon Ball is a huge brand also, but ended up not doing that well, and the game was actually quite fun. Mid-Alert for Lord of the Rings was an amazing game, but and look, I'm comparing Dragon Ball, Lord of the Rings, and then MetaZoo, so this is not even the same comparison, because at least Mid-Alert had Lord of the Rings, that is a huge IP in the pop culture sphere, but yeah, MetaZoo, look, I guess this is almost 1 hour, so I will say it. MetaZoo will be dead in 2 years, 3 years. Dead is always a relative concept, right? Dead for the expectations. Probably they will still be making cards as long there is some people online buying. But yeah, it's just... there is nothing there, again, there is always I end up also talking about this with James, the black swan, something that happens that you don't expect, and maybe MetaZoo could be that there is a scenario on that. But if you try to play with some mods, yeah, no. Disney stuff, I think, is a bit different, because Disney in reality is a huge IP. But even that, trying to be comparable with Pokemon, I mean, they probably will not even come close to Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic. So forget Pokemon at this point. And actually, I have a crazy theory about this. Not related with Disney, but actually related with Pokemon. Because you agree with me, and this is a fact. I mean, we can check numbers that Pokemon Online is huge. It's insane. You look at sales on eBay, you look at numbers by other content creators, completely different level than any sports card market. But I think, in a weird way, the sports card world have the real world. I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself that well. In the sense that if you go to shows, sports cars are kind of king. I know there is specific events for, actually forgot the name, but Collector Con or something like that for Pokemon that do very well. But I feel like the real world soccer cars, they seem a bit bigger than they actually are when we compare with the online data that we have for Pokemon. Do you agree with that? And I don't understand that well what's going on, because I would assume at this point the shows will be infected by Pokemon cards, you know?
Yeah, I guess just kind of on the spot, what I would say is, at least with sports, you have like really rare stuff and unique stuff. I think with Pokemon, you don't really have that. I mean, obviously trophy cards sort of take that place of like, being truly pretty rare and unique. But I feel like if you went to a Pokemon show, it'd probably be just the same cards like over and over and over. Like obviously you get that with sports that, there's the Zion Prism that everyone had, or the Luca Prism or whatever. But I think generally speaking, there's still a range of what you can have. I think Pokemon maybe is a bit less in that regard. But I mean, to be fair, yeah, I don't really know why Pokemon, totally has this control over the greater market, but at the same time has less media presence at shows and stuff. I mean, I get that they're probably more marketed to sports cards people, and that's sort of like the community, but yeah, I don't quite understand.
Do you think could be that, and I hope people don't take this in a wrong way, but maybe the personality is a bit more nerd and does not go to shows as much? Maybe this is a reach, but I don't know.
Yeah, I sort of thought that, I didn't want to say it because I don't, I don't know, but yeah, I would think that like a trade negotiation between a couple Pokemon collectors probably isn't as social, and they're probably a little more standoffish, so it might not be as fun. Going back to like you growing up on the playground and seeing Pokemon cards, I was obviously a little younger, so I didn't really experience that, but I experienced Pokemon on my own, in the sense that I was too young to have friends to talk about with and all that. But Pokemon had a way of sort of engulfing you. I mean, I played the games on my Game Boy all the time.
Man.
Yeah. It's so fun. I watched the show, I had the cards. So really it was this, cumulative experience that you could, sort of connect with the cards to. Stuff like Lorcana or these new TCGs that, if you're like if you're a TCG that's actually meant to play the game, like maybe people enjoy playing the game and it grows that way. But this sort of, social media hype, this is going to be the new thing. I don't know if you can ever recreate that really in terms of what Pokemon did. Gary Vee's going to try apparently one day to make his V friends into a show, but like, it's just not the same. And so I think anytime anyone brings up Pokemon, comparing their market to Pokemon or egg set to I think it's all just useless.
Yes, and let's be real. It's just, is impossible? No, nothing is impossible. Eventually there will be something really big that also will have a huge impact in kids and maybe will be very collectible. But trying to predict this type of stuff is a completely waste of time. And that video that Jeff Wilson did, and not only Jeff Wilson, to be honest, other people, but Jeff Wilson is the biggest one. I really think it's just Jeff Wilson, and he lacks knowledge. There is not a good way to put this type of stuff, because if you have my background, if you have your background, that's BS. You cannot make this very serious and think you are putting in the world a hot take. That's not a hot take. That's a dumb take. I think there is a difference. I have hot takes that I also think are very close to being dumb, but at least there is some logic. On that one, there is basically nothing. I don't even think Jeff Wilson puts in perspective nostalgia, because that's one of the main factors for people caring. So look, I like Magic more. But when I see the Pokemon base set, that stuff eats me. You know, I always think, oh man, those cards are. And you probably feel the same. I mean, they are. I don't know. I don't even know how to express. I remember them as a kid. I think they look iconic, and this is kind of funny. In the past, I thought that they end up not looking that good, but right now, I actually think they look really nice. And that connection was not built in one day. It was years and years and years, and all the story behind it. It's just different. It's nostalgia, the never meant to be effect. Is a bunch of stuff, and like you said we play, and he also said that games for Pokemons are not relevant or something. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what are you talking about? I'm sorry, because I mean, Pokemon, the Game Boy stuff, and even nowadays, I know that they are very successful. But if you played Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, you know how impactful those games end up being. Actually, my first Game Boy, I bought the Game Boy specific to play Pokemon. It's not like I cared about Game Boy; I cared about Pokemon Red at the time. So it is what it is. People really need to do their own research and put in perspective that just because you have a lot of followers, you can still say BS, and I include myself there. Not that I have a lot of followers, but I say a lot of BS. So people should take everything with a grain of salt.
I will add, it's not a negative take. I'm not being negative. I'm not, and this honestly isn't even as much at Sports Card Investor because I honestly think he made that video more so for engagements.
Yeah, maybe.
Whenever you start the video by saying goodbye Charizard, goodbye Pikachu, whatever that is, I mean, you're obviously trying to stir up something. Um, but yeah, it's not negative about other spaces. I think just Pokemon is that big, and I think that can actually be a positive. Like I said with soccer, I think that having something that dominates like that is great for cards. For everyone. Just because there will be some sort of crossover effect, or people that maybe they started with Pokemon cards, they didn't like it, so they tried something. I mean, there's just so much good stuff that can come out of that I don't think you have to tear down that IP to build up your own. Like that can exist, and so can the rest. And if they are good enough, they will survive. I just think it's that simple.
Yeah, I agree. Totally with you on that. So the last question is the question I ask everyone: hot take slash unpopular opinion about the market.
Um. Okay, so
Spicy
I
one.
guess yeah. Well, I mean, it's not bad. Typically, the hot takes are like doom and gloom. I'm going to say that this is my favorite time in soccer cards. In the little over 3 years I've been here, going to the moon and coming back down from the moon. That's not as much as you're frantically trying to do things and flip this and turn it into that, and that is sort of this enjoying factor to it. I think that from a collecting standpoint and a confidence standpoint and just knowing what you're buying and feeling good about what you're doing, I think now is as good of a time as ever. And I don't think that that's a sentiment held by many because, I mean, I've been here in the highs and the lows in terms of how people are feeling. And back in the day, there was probably not a negative word in sight. Everyone was super excited. And now I think most of the time people are negative. And as much as, I sort of want to be negative and we could all be negative together, I mean, this is a hobby that we're supposed to enjoy. And maybe you feel negatively in terms of market sentiment going forward. We're not in the best spot, so maybe it's going to stagnate or go down a little. Sure, but I think in terms of pure collecting and in terms of just enjoying the hobby as is, I think that this is as good of a time as ever, especially if you're someone just, I mean, obviously this is soccer focused, but if you're just looking to buy soccer cards, you can buy more than ever. You can feel more comfortable than ever. You've seen people pay crazy amounts before, so you know what is possible. Not that that's going to be where it goes to again, but just to say that I think that this is much more comfortable, much more exciting for me at least. But that's also because, I have at least the mindset now that I want to be here for a very long time. Like in terms of soccer collecting, it's a lot of what I do. I love going on eBay. I love, the hunt. I love, trying to build a set. I love all this stuff. So to think that,
Super fun, yeah.
yeah, like now should be a fun time. Now should be a time to basically see it as a hobby, right? That's what people have said. And they say more so now as you should see it as a hobby. But if it's a hobby, you should enjoy it. I don't know why I see so many people that are just so negative, but yet continue to take part in it. And I'm sure it's just the market sentiment and highs and lows, but I think people should be enjoying themselves. And maybe if they have to take a step back from Discord. I still, probably to my detriment, I'm like over, into Discord. I love chatting with people and about soccer cards and stuff like that. So I do see a lot of the negativity, but I try my best not to let it sort of affect me and how I view things. But I think, some people that maybe haven't been here as much or maybe haven't seen the highs and lows probably, are feeling pretty rough right now. And I just want to throw out there that I feel great. I think it's a good time. And at least in terms of enjoying yourself, if things are a lot cheaper, it's much easier to do. And so if you like this stuff, I think it's great. And not a lot of people say that. A lot of the hot takes that we see nowadays are just people being upset or angry or negative. But I really do think that this is a great time.
I agree. I mean, I think you well said there. I made a video. I'm not sure if you remember this video or not, but I made a video probably 1 year ago, and the title of the video was "Enjoy This Market." And I think people at the time ended up taking that video in the context of that day of that time. But the idea that I tried to push, and I'm not sure if I was very successful or not, but at least the idea I'm trying to explain right now as when I said enjoy this market is almost a philosophical concept, is that you should enjoy any market. Because if the market is very, very good, if the market is amazing, well, probably a good time to sell. If the market is going down, probably a good time to collect. But basically, my perspective is there is no bad market. We make the market. Is you're almost like life. Let's all be real. Is you make the life. The way you look at your life is what defines if you have a good life or a bad life, and that's again a bit deep probably, but I think you are correct. This is probably one of the best markets, but I probably will feel the same 1 year from now, even if the market is down or up. And like you said, collecting cards, again, Pokemon, baseball, honestly, whatever, is almost a lifestyle if you really enjoy the grind. I mean, I have certain searches on my eBay that I do it every day in the morning. I go there, let's see if there is this card that I'm looking, let's see if on this website. Later, let's take a look at PWCC if there is something flashed on the auction. Let's take a look at Goldin. Sometimes I'm not even buying, I mean, there is weeks that I don't buy anything, but that search for, I would say search for knowledge at the same time is something that makes you grow a lot. Look, compare yourself, and this applies to me, this applies to everyone, but compare yourself right now versus what you knew 3 years ago. Basically, the way we started this conversation, you know much, much more. It is not even comparable. Look, if you look at my videos when I started versus right now, I think right now is my best version in terms of knowledge. Some people may disagree, but I really believe in this because I know my evolution. I saw your videos 2 years ago. I saw your videos 1 year ago. And I enjoyed those videos at the time because I was sharing the journey with you. But I think you are much better now. I think you have a much better perspective about the market right now. We all have. So yeah, I really enjoyed your answer there because it's something that I also agree. I mean, this market is great.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I really do feel for the people that they got into soccer and all they've seen is down, because if that's the case, it's very hard to have perspective. And I think that's what you're talking about in terms of life.
Yeah.
It's perspective. I mean, in terms of how you view things and how you operate. But I do think that collecting is also really good from a philosophical standpoint. Just you learn so many things through collecting that are then very true within life. And so I think if you're thinking about quitting now, it's not the same, but you don't really want to quit in life. It's if this journey that you're on, it sucks for a little while. I mean, that happens in anything, really. I mean, you look at, even like soccer players, or this is a big thing in America where like people that play sports and make a ton of money can still be depressed and still like really be down on themselves. So no matter how much in the moment or at the time you really enjoyed something, there will be hardships. And I think that that's what we're seeing right now. But generally speaking, I think it's as fun as ever. I mean, again, I have as much knowledge as ever, like you just said, so I can go out and, even then learn more and find more. And so it all sort of builds on top of itself. And if you look at it from that perspective, sure, there's financial setbacks theoretically that have happened. Depending on if you sell or not, or what you're holding, or anything like that. But at the end of the day, I think as long as you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you're probably going to do good, and you're probably going to have a good time as long as you keep your focus and your perspective with you. So
powerful words, my friend. And I think that's an amazing way to end the podcast. It was a pleasure, like always, to talk with you. So yeah, thank you so much for accepting the invite. Guys, do not forget to leave a like, shake his channel, amazing content creator, and see you guys next time.